Alright, here we are. We've made it to lecture 6 of the Power of Zoo series, introductory course on Mardukite Systemology. Recording these lectures, we're going to pick up the second part of the physical universe from our previous lecture. This will be the last lecture of the evening, and then we have 3 lectures scheduled for tomorrow. And that will be our course on the Power of Zoo. So this lecture we will title The Elements of Zoo in the Physical Universe. We treated a little bit of this in the previous lecture. Now, in some mystic philosophies, it would be sufficient to state that zoo or its approximated equivalent to whatever paradigm, to state though that zoo is zoo, and leave it at that. Of course, other mystic philosophies, they do not ascribe to themselves the title systemology as we do. So we are concerned then with higher thought, intellectual analysis of reasoning. And that's now so second nature and automated. We have a generation of individuals that are questioning the very holographic reality of their universe. It's rightly so. I mean, you should always seek the highest understanding that we can attribute to our experiences, so long as they are true experiences in self-honesty. Now, if you cannot be absolutely certain of the nature of experience, the only solution is the pathway to self-honesty. Now, if you do feel certain, absolutely certain of your experience and your programming, well, then you should find next-gen systemology and the bulk of what is behind Mardukite Zuism is more of a confirmation, a solidarity of the truth that you recognize. Simply, we have a systematic vocabulary that we're integrating rather than indoctrination into some newfangled religion or a novel fancy. Well, certainly, zoo is zoo. Zoo is zoo all along the zoo line. Little hint here. It's why we call it a zoo line. So it's a continuum of a singularity, or universal agent, and it differs in degree, and well, that's its only point of variation. And different combinations of this singularity as a manifestation, combining its degree with its environment or conditions, results in various types, flavors, or species of variation. The fundamental, the most basic principle essence is still zoo in whatever aspect it's being treated as. For example, there's a necessity for the genetic vehicle to consume fuel in order to operate. We're not treating an arbitrary closed system. The consumption of fuel such as when we burn a log on a fire. Zoo is present in such manifestations and processes of the physical universe too. It's just not of the same type as when we treat zoo as the spiritual life force, what we find in vital organic existences. And it's not the type of it's not the same type of zoo as what's present in the seed of life, what encodes all manifest existences, or at the very least all manifest existences present in the physical universe. And these are all forms of zoo, but the conditions as it applies to the individual is unique from these others. So some individuals, listening to these lectures, I don't expect that of those here, but some listening might wonder why, any attention is given to these rudimentary aspects of physical existence and living in that existence. I mean, you might think I have a pretty low opinion of the human condition, and that all individuals require education and drilling in how to live, how to exist, how to continue that existence. I mean, obviously, I don't have that low of an opinion. Obviously, the human condition successfully crawled to make it this far, with its random hit-and-miss approaches to experience. But, have we really made it so far? I mean, if this hit-and-miss method of livingness is bringing us to a point where we must literally evolve or die, then it can't be working out very well. No matter how much we might try to self-hypnotize ourselves into false acceptance to the way things are, succumbing to complacency and agreeing to a reality for the sake of some erroneous material ideal when we actually know better. How long is it realistic to expect existence to continue on this track and still support any livingness? Now, alright, an individual can usually get along through several decades of existence, controlling a single genetic vehicle through what is considered an average lifespan. They can get by on this on purely low-level physical knowledge, such as you would receive by general societal indoctrination. There's no disputing this. Of course, this speaks nothing of the happiness or quality of livingness experienced or the true range that is otherwise possible. An individual can expect to be kept alive, imprisoned, for the duration of an average lifespan. And there's no general education offered concerning best practices. We can't even be sure if supposed authorities even maintain any kind of reality on best practices. then alone be left to wonder why such information cannot be shared freely with all equally. But, evolution, it seems, has never been equal. Monkeys stayed monkeys. Homo erectus replaced Homo habilis, and they replaced themselves. I mean, they didn't evolve into Homo sapiens. At best they may have reached Neanderthal, but even still, Neanderthal and Homo sapiens once cohabited on the timeline, but only one became Homo sapiens sapiens. So the other did not evolve at all. The other did not evolve. The other did not earn the awareness necessary to continue in existence. And here we are now. Homo sapiens sapiens versus the coming race, Homo novus. And only one will survive. I think we all have a sense that there is a better way. For those that have any sense at all. But we all have a sense that there's like a higher route to travel to achieve a higher state of beingness. Now, unfortunately, there have been very few throughway avenues to grant the human condition any gain in this direction. But, very fortunately, there's at least a few of us today still here, alive and kicking alongside you, working to actualize an awareness of a better world right now. And it is very possible. It is happening. And it begins, for our purposes, with a healthy and strong individual. A strong movement, a strong organization, requires a strong and healthy individual. So that is what I am here promoting, introducing in this brief series of lectures. And for those that don't catch the audio for the transcript, The Power of Zoo, that will be made available. There's some that do dismiss these rudiments as unimportant. There's some within my own close ranks and councils that have dismissed in the past these rudiments as unimportant, but they're not. Additionally, we must be absolutely certain that seekers have found and achieved this solid footing that's available at grade 3, which is what we're discussing here. Even as an introductory course, this is grade 3 material in a long string of work that I've been involved in. Grade 3 is specifically demonstrated in 2 textbooks, the Tablets of Destiny and Crystal Clear. It's important. Seekers have found the solid ledge of knowing, or the know-ledge, of grade 3 before advancing ahead on the pathway. Even though the material only seems to get more and more interesting the further we go. There's no doubt about that. But that's the reason for these lectures, to make sure that we have that solid footing, because the work is really, however, only as practical as the extent it may be used by you. Now, and that's, like I say, I decided to review some of these topics before moving the work any further in published form. I mean, we're all already in the midst now of the 3rd gate at grade 3 of Mardukite Systemology. Treated the 2nd, with Mardukite, the Chamberlain's work, the complete Anunnaki legacy. And we'll be expanding on that with Mardukite Zuism. And we treated the first gate, the lunar gate, of enchantments and mysticism, with treating the ceremonialism and magic, natural magic, druidism, dragon legacy, so forth. We've treated this. So here we are, grade 3, the third gate, Mardukite Systemology. There is no substitute for an appropriate level of self-honesty once a seeker passes beyond this point. You know, we aren't demanding perfection from you at this point. We aren't asking for a game-ending win. We are saying that we can all do just a bit better. And after that, a little more. We're taking steps. And we are relying on sure footing to carry us to the next threshold. Alright. It may be stated that what we call standard issue instruction and methods of operating the standard issue human condition, it may be that these methods do not provide the most efficient optimum results. It just might be. We look around today and certainly have a lot to question about this standard issue instruction that's been handed down. It certainly provides no guarantees as a catalyst to a higher order of knowingness and beingness. That much is certain. The zoo flows in on the zoo line at a constant. Free-flowing zoo energy is abundant in existence. So, therefore, the main low-level obstructions to clear vision of self-honesty, the clear vision of experience of a self-honest reality, it must then pretend to be what we waste energy on. The other specific uses of personal zoo as beta awareness, the replenishing zoo in beta existence via defragmented channels or conduits. I mean, this relates to any communication of zoo energy along any line. Doesn't even have to be for dealing pertains to semantics of zoo. We're looking for the most optimum high efficiency performance of the human condition as a vehicle. Now, in regards to the human condition operating as an open system of spiritual life energy, of zoo, these conditions are specifically, as they pertain to the genetic vehicle, they're treated in other, the more commonly known mystical, spiritual, philosophical paradigms, like as the elements of the physical universe. And if we were going to use some of the semantics from such paths as this, zoo would be the quintessential of all individual elements, or else akasha, the spiritual element and quality that's within all existence, the great cosmic energy, universal agent that the mystic priest, wizard, magician This is what they seek. This is it. Now, it's possible in theory that this inherent zoo in all existence is, that the pantheist has come to consider the divine, is that it's actually the residual essence remaining to keep material and substance in existence as space in time that was once put forth by an alpha spirit or spirits that designed this present rendition of the physical universe. Yeah. This could then easily be reinforced by our participation, by agreement with said universe, following the lines of the observer effect. I mean, I'm merely putting this forth as conjecture at this time, but it's something for consideration. But if we examine the elemental model, the one most widely adopted in esoteric philosophies, so we have Earth, which is equivalent to the substance or the food that we process. Water, water is water. And air. Well, the systemology behind organic processing is practically self-explanatory. I mean, we have some people describing, the genetic vehicle as something of a carbon, oxygen heat generator. And the transformative fire that consumes, processes, and wastes the sustenance from these other elements. But beneath it all, it's the zoo that provides these manifestations with their qualities as life-sustaining energy, without which we wouldn't earn any nourishment, right? I mean, so iron and lead are both substances manifesting in similar type, yet iron contains more zoo and is present in our blood. It may actually be beneficial for the organic organism to replenish it, in small doses even, particularly females, because they lose iron in menstrual blood. On the other hand, too much iron is deadly. I mean, as a substance, its mass and volume doesn't replace the equivalent of other food types, and lead is toxic. I mean, in high doses, but also a cumulative toxin stored in the body, which diminishes its ability to process other nutrients. So all substances obviously are not the same when it comes to the degrees and conditions of manifestation in zoo. Okay, so we speak like philosophically of unification, and we treat the zoo line as a singularity of the true cosmic energy. So we can see in a world of manifestations that all things are not equal to all things. Things in the physical universe have a type and variety, and it constitutes and contributes to an observed quality. And many of these qualities and significances, they're not absolutes. They're appropriated specifically by an individual's awareness. It's the quality of physical energy and matter may or may not be easily quantified. For example, like on our standard model, but it is still a variation in degree that we may observe. It's real enough to treat things in exclusion of other things. There is no great philosophical issue for this in a world of forms, because without it, where does a table end and a floor begin? there's no reason, I have no reason to put forth a series of complications or metaphysical wordplay. There's no reason to throw ourselves into some total superficial, nihilistic approach to the physical universe. We can be assumed to be in part responsible for at least a part of this universe, and a participation in the things being what things are. And the more we can take self-honest responsibility for the greater a reach we may extend to be the cause of the change that we want to see actualized in the world. This is actually treated specifically in the Crystal Clear textbook, our self-defragmentation program, for those that haven't had the privilege of digging into that yet. Originally, Crystal Clear was a second portion of Tablets of Destiny. The two went together. They were prepared virtually together. We realized, though, that it might be challenging for someone to sit down to a 250,000 word book. So we broke it down into two sections, one book being Tablets of Destiny, and the other being Crystal Clear. Of course, this being an introductory course, I'm not expecting people to have already understood that material to get some benefit from this. Now, if a seeker examines, or perhaps, I know some of you have already examined the preliminary instructions regarding those basic spiritual, mystical, magical, metaphysical processes developed by other paradigms along the historical timeline of humanity. You'll notice they kind of all relate back to the elements in some way or another, and including some methodology of energy work or other means of creative processing that familiarizes a seeker with streams or rays connected to the elemental forces of nature. I'm certainly, we're dealing with a different paradigm now with Mardukite Systemology. I definitely have familiarity with this, and I cover in the Druid's Handbook and the Elvenomicon, which are available, a significant amount of this kind of material. But a seeker of, or an initiate of whatever paradigm, at the very beginning, usually they're instructed in the proper manner of managing the energy reception and projection, the give and take of energy. And this includes the energy, like the zoo energy, as we consider it, that's inherent within the foods, the water, and the air that we're consistently processing to maintain the functionality of a genetic body. See, we can't deny that while each individual carries their own tendencies and preferences, there still are best practices for the handling and management of each of these aspects. I mean, that's there's a way to get the right results, obviously. So fragments of this knowledge, it's too often demonstrated in a complicated, more mysteriously. It's given a lot of mystery. It's demonstrated more mysteriously than it actually is. And you see this appearing frequently in such discourses that they're regarding the magic of water, or the spiritual energy of breathing, and so forth. I've stated in other lectures or writings I've personally found that the preliminaries of personal development, no matter what mystic or new thought tradition they're pulled from, they're usually too often overlooked by the average seeker, which is usually the individual is always looking for something brighter, more colorful, something that will produce those objective, fireworks that blows up the truth behind the curtain. It pains me to tell you this, but at no point do I expect you to sprout wings from this material. The very fact that we should have to pause and discuss some of the basic functions of the human condition demonstrates this material represents first steps towards brighter things. We'll say that. How evolved is an individual that's dismissing the significance regarding conscious reception of Zu as the life force, the vital spiritual energy imbuing life with life, and contributing to a continuation of life, right? Of course, then you tell me, well, I already know how to eat, drink, and breathe, so this is ridiculous. Right? But let me say this one thing that cannot be overstated. All individuals believe themselves to be in the possession of about as much reasoning as is necessary to survive. An individual is inclined, whether from millions of years of genetic programming or other emotional encoding of lifetimes, or this lifetime, to be, think, and perform as they do. Seldom does the true alpha personality of the individual even have a chance to shine through, with all of the fragmentation standing in the way. So, usually an individual is not even aware that their true personality is being displaced. And more to the point, an individual of the standard issue variety is not given adequate instruction on the manner of which the human condition actually functions. Okay, this may be due to some ulterior purposes of control by this upper echelon authority level, one that keeps individuals attributing the source cause to anything other than self in order to make the real even more real and keep it from being handled properly by any one individual or group. Yeah, you see how that works? Of course, it may also be due to sheer ignorance, since most common sense of yesteryear has ceased to be common, now treated as some mystical, supernatural wizard sense. But then again, I suppose if we contrast these two states of or approaches to operating the human condition, being in the know might actually seem pretty freaking magical to some other folk. Now, initiates and novitiates of the esoteric and arcane arts, they receive special instruction for the conscious reception of energy, for example, from foods we eat and water we drink and air we breathe. Now, when we consider how closely the pathway to self-honesty mirrors similar models such as the basic human needs, or a pyramid of self-actualization, and so forth, we should not be too surprised that the fundamentals of livingness should be found in the mastery of having our genetic vehicle in optimum operation. This includes proper maintenance of the body to reach the ends. That acquisition of this physical form does not become burdensome in this lifetime, and therefore become an additional source of fragmentation to hinder your progress up, out, and beyond these forms. The more awareness an individual must fix on remedying and repairing the genetic vehicle, the less it will be applied to higher endeavors. Wouldn't you agree? Okay, so it's logical then. It would make logical sense that we should find the ways that provide the most efficient processing of Zu through the physical body. Alright. So, the true masters, true mystical masters, true spiritual leaders, the really effective philosophers and the ascended ones, the ascended masters, they've all left like this visible trail in their wake. I mean, here we are, over the course of 6,000 years since the Proto-Sumerian inception of current civilization, and over 4,000 years since the systematization of the Mardukite standard in Babylon, whereby humanity received programming with language, the inception of language, cuneiform writing, the idea that thoughts and ideas and concepts and things are words and abstractions. So now we're in a position to experiment with, synthesize, and know a great deal from our past. This has been the primary task of the modern Mardukite movement, Mardukite Systemology movement, but only to the degree that it's effective and workable and improves the conditions of life for the future spiritual evolution of humanity, a continuance of the ability to exist at the most ideal states attainable for the human condition. And this is milestones ahead of where we find the general population today. But we are taking baby steps, and that means not missing steps. So here we're previewing the fundamentals, just making certain that nothing's been overlooked, and this way station before charging ahead has been cleared on the pathway. Now, we could derive a considerable amount of material for systemology regarding these subjects, but this would be a repetitive return to an emphasis on actualized awareness, which is stated elsewhere in the grade 3 textbooks, Tablets of Destiny, crystal clear. So we're not going to just reiterate all that now. To say really a greater level of awareness is simply applied here, particularly to the conscious reception of Zu. There's nothing obscure or wrong with imbuing intention onto sustenance that is to be consumed. Like the idea of blessing or praying over food and water, charging it with the highest ideal, this is not restricted to any one or another tradition on the timeline. The other point of fact we might note regarding those individuals that were successful on this track in the distant past is the manner of consumption, consuming sustenance. These individuals were not gluttons, and they did not treat the body with excess. In fact, we found that the more enlightened individuals, they actually consume less physical matter and yet absorb more zoo. And that's interesting. So it's not the quantity that causes us to sustain or starve. And it may not be restricted to just the quality of one's diet either, although natural foods, grains, rice, seeds, nuts, olive oils, fruits, the foodstuffs that retain the unprocessed qualities of life, those all carry a higher capacity of zoo. And that's just from the observation and personal experience. Now, significant attention given to like health regimens in this commercial society has come to border on like just the flat out trendy and faddish. I mean, this only furthers a separation between what is considered best practices and what is just simply elitism, snobism, whatever. It's gotten to where many are actually convinced that healthy living is somehow more expensive in the long run. And perhaps in many ways it's actually marketed as such, I don't know. There seems to be a social tendency to try and preserve the rich and political leaders and treat working classes as disposable batteries. We know that much, so. And this is actually not as strictly evident in the most ancient civilizations, but we certainly see a rise of it correlate with industrial mechanization of society as we come closer to the present on the timeline. Many leaders have most likely experienced brainwashing into assuming that the way things are is the way things are, and it's the best to keep them the way things are, and they're put in charge of enforcing the solidarity of to keep things the way they are. That's no less found in the academic community, and one does not even permit an original thought until perhaps partially sometime near a point where the student is forced to develop and defend a doctoral thesis, and even then every statement of fact must be attributed to someone else, some other source. The student is not permitted to independently arrive at any conclusions that may duplicate a cognition that was already held by one or many times in the past, or documented, such and so forth, and beyond. It's not even the point of our present lecture, but we know that the ancient mystics and distant yogis were all very light consumers, and this promoted healthier and more vibrant personal energy systems. That's what we need to know. And it's not only specific to the organic mechanics of the genetic vehicle, but also for to keep the channels clear for energetic distribution and communication of awareness. And keep in mind, tools are only effective to the degree which they are sound and maintained functional, in addition to the skill of the operator utilizing them. So it's been suggested in numerous arcane and esoteric sources that a seeker should not overwhelm their biological system with excessive food, and that all food taken in should be properly broken down in the mouth before swallowed. Best, we may determine that a greater amount of zoo energy is received from high energy foods by reducing the materials to the smallest and finest parts, even into a pasty mush, prior to introducing it to the digestive system. There's an entire Eastern philosophy developed around metabolism the heat properties of food and such, but really the greater actualized awareness applied to the physical universe, the more aptly able and likely an individual is to apply automatically, by inclination, the best practices to their livingness factor. And we might apply the same basic idea to the water we drink, which is actually an even more famous mystical example than treating the energy of food. Many spiritual traditions maintain beliefs about the qualities of water, particularly the fact that it's the most receptive element and thus easy to charge with intention. The very physical composition of water itself also seems fundamentally critical to the type of organic life form used as the genetic vehicle. There's numerous mythological paradigms and spiritual systems that even identify water as the most perfected icon or symbolic representation of life. So it's critical to remain hydrated, but not to the point of engorging the system with excess fluid. Excess of any kind will simply contribute to states of heavy energy, which is usually due to the unnecessarily excessive waste processing that's required. And that can actually consume more zoo energy than is received from a dietary regimen or when the intake habits are not optimum. There's similar beliefs maintained by followers of the old schools concerning reception of zoo while food and water is broken down the mouth and its dispersal and sent to the stomach and so forth. See, it's getting late. Really, to summarize here for the evening, because it's not my intention of this lecture series or of Mardukite Zuism or so forth to imply a particular philosophic tendency or some ethic regarding the moral type of dietary regimen or the handling of foods and sustenance. That understanding increases with actualized awareness. There's no amount of enforcement that I could demonstrate about such moralities. But as an individual does increase their actualized awareness, certain facets pertaining to things as basic as nutrition and physical well-being will become clearer as personal patterns are observed. This happens as a natural facet of increased awareness, also through deliberate and intentional directed awareness in processing, our methods of processing in systemology. The intention of next-gen systemology is not to impose one or another fact as to what to think or do, except in regards to knowing how to think holistically and systematically in wider and more largely encompassing ways that are not generally realized in the standard issue programming of the human condition. So our purpose then is to redefine, expand, and advance what it means to be a next-gen, next spiritual evolution human, the state of Homo novus, which is very much possible to achieve in this lifetime, and I hope you will join me on this journey. Thank you. Good night.